The city that never grows old. The history of Liverpool can be traced back to 1190 when it was called Liverpool, meaning pool or creek with muddy water. The borough was founded by King John in 1207 and granted status as an official town in his royal charter. But Liverpool remained a small settlement until its trade with Ireland and coastal parts of England and Wales was overtaken by trade with Africa and the West Indies. This included the slave trade. Liverpool's expansion to become a major city continued over the next 2 centuries. By the start of the 19th century, trade was passing through Liverpool on a large scale. The population grew rapidly, especially with Irish migrants. As growth continued, the city became known as the second city of the empire and was also called the New York of Europe. From the mid-20th century, Liverpool's docks and traditional manufacturing industries went into sharp decline, and the unemployment rate in Liverpool rose to one of the highest in the UK. Starting in the early 1960s, the city became internationally renowned for its culture, particularly as the centre of the Merseybeat sound. In recent years, Liverpool's economy has recovered, partly due to tourism as well as substantial investment in regeneration schemes. The city was European Capital of Culture in 2008. However, going back in further detail, June 1644, 10,000 men arrived in Liverpool following Prince Rupert of the Rhine in an attempt to capture Liverpool's castle. A siege took place over 16 days to defend the city. They eventually took hold of the castle, only to be driven out. Rupert had no choice but to take refuge in the Everton area of the city, near a tower, which was originally an overnight holding place for local drunks and criminals. Consequently, the tower is known as Prince Rupert's Tower, and is also found on the Everton football badge since 1938. On 3rd October 1699, a ship named Liverpool Merchant set sail for Africa. This was Liverpool's first recorded slave ship, arriving in Barbados with a cargo of 220 Africans. The same year, Liverpool had been granted status as an independent parish. The ship returned on 18th September 1700. The first wet dock of the world was built in Liverpool and completed in 1715. It was constructed for a capacity of 100 ships, as the doctor suggests.
That's better! The dome's still got integrity. It's 10 feet of steel combination made in Liverpool. Magnificent workmanship.
By the end of the 18th century, 80% of Britain's Atlantic slave activity and 40% of the world's was accounted for by slave ships that voyaged from the docks of Liverpool. Although it wasn't just slavery which boosted Liverpool's economy, piracy also did this. Pirates would invade other ships on the 7 seas. Scouse privateers, which were official government-employed pirates, stole millions of pounds worth of treasure and became the original pirates of the Caribbean. Other treasures were sugar, silk and coffee. Liverpool becomes the tooth decay capital of the world because of sugar. The slave trade transformed Liverpool into Britain's second most important city, becoming a financial centre, only being beaten by London. In 1799, ships sailing from Liverpool would return with 45,000 slaves from Africa, a big change from 220 since 1699. Although many merchants managed to ignore this law and continue to deal in underground slave trafficking, slave trade was made illegal in 1807 and was abolished in British colonies in 1833. Due to Liverpool being a leading port of the British Empire, a number of major buildings were constructed, such as the Liverpool-Manchester Railways in 1830, Lime Street Station in 1836. The Grand National was first run at Aintree in 1839, with the first horse winning named the Lottery, and many more. When the Lumiere brothers invented cinematography in 1895, a few years later they visited Liverpool and videoed footage. This contains the first moving pictures of the city, which also consists of Lime Street. Further scenes were filmed across the city with the most famous footage of Liverpool docks from the overhead railway, although this railway is no longer there. In 1904 began the building of Liverpool's cathedral, and by 1916 the three pier head buildings, including the Liver building, were complete. This was the pinnacle of Liverpool's economy and success, and was regarded as the second city of the British Empire. As the second city of the empire, Liverpool played a major role in World War I. By 1914, 31% of imports and exports passed through Liverpool. This share increased because many southern English ports were closed due to the war. Merseyside mattered. Wilfred Owen was a very famous poet who saw the events of the horrors of World War I, which inspired him to write his very, very powerful poems. He was educated in Birkenhead. After the war, the demand for export commodities dropped, which resulted in a decline of the city's economic status. The mass casualties and death across Britain also did not help. Unemployment was above national average, and the city also became known nationally for its occasional violent religious sectarianism. In 1928, Everton Football Club won the First Division title. The centre-forward Dixie Dean scored a Football League record of 60 goals in the same season. This world record still stands today. The rise in popularity in cars led to congestion, and in 1934 the Mersey Tunnel Road was opened, linking Liverpool and the Wirral Peninsula. During the Second World War, Liverpool was the centre for planning the crucial Battle of the Atlantic, which lasted the entire war. There were 80 air raids in total. John Lennon, one of the founding members of the Beatles, was born in Liverpool during an air raid on the 9th of October 1940. There was a concentrated series of raids in May 1941. This interrupted operations at the docks for almost a week. Half of homes were damaged and 11,000 totally destroyed. One of the greatest architectural disasters of World War II in Liverpool was the destruction of the Custom House. An average of 2,500 people were killed and over 70,000 people were made homeless. This devastating series of bombings was known as the Blitz. Liverpool suffered, second only to London's. However, significant rebuilding followed the war. During the 1950s and 60s, the local economy was on the rise. In 1960, the Beatles formed in Liverpool with members John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison and Ringo Starr. They became widely regarded as one of the most influential and most important rock bands in history. Their enormous popularity first emerged in 1963 when their music grew in sophistication. This crazed time was known as Beatlemania. Not only were they the most influential bands of all time, they were also the best selling. They grew into international stars, leading the British invasion on the United States pop market, with estimated sales of over 800 million physical and digital albums worldwide. In 1988, the group was inducted into the Rock Hall of Fame, and all four members were inducted individually from 1994 to 2015. In 2008, the group topped Billboard magazine's list of all-time most successful artists. This was followed by Liverpool winning European Capital of Culture for a year to remember. As of 2017, they hold the record for most number one hits on the Hot 100 chart with 20. Lennon was assassinated in 1980 and George Harrison died of lung cancer in 2001. McCartney and Starr still remain musically active. July 1981 saw the infamous Toxteth riots, and for the first time in the UK outside of Northern Ireland, tear gas was used by the police against civilians. In 1989, Liverpool FC fans were fatally injured in the Hillsborough disaster at the FA Cup semi-final. The media published that Liverpool fans were at fault, such as The Sun. This led to a decrease in sales for the newspaper in Liverpool. It has not been long found that South Yorkshire police made a range of mistakes at the game. Another disaster occurred in February 1993 when James Bolger, a 2-year-old child, was brutally murdered by two 10-year-olds. The two boys were found guilty later in the year and sentenced to indefinite detention. In 2007, Liverpool celebrated its 800th birthday, and today the estimated population is 893,009. However, after all these disastrous events, remarkable figures and amazing progress and expansion, Liverpool has remained a city of culture and has left its mark throughout the whole of the world.